Hi all, Eric's UK here with another vid. This time I'm pondering something. I'm in the process of trying to design a campaign. I've got a few weeks to do it, as one of my other players has taken over the GMing chair for a while. And I've come to I've come to a question, I think is probably more accurate, and that is, does fantasy role-playing have to be fantastical? When I played fantasy role-playing many years ago, when I'm talking basic D&D through Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing, the original one, RuneQuest, 2nd edition AD&D, 1st edition, so on, through at least till the end of the 90s. It was always kind of assumed, I think, in my mind, that although we were dealing with worlds that have magic and monsters, that generally the appearance and the way of life was still very much kind of a faux medieval. So, and I think a lot of the books in the artwork still kind of conveyed that a little to me. Obviously you've got slight fantastical elements. I mean, check out any of Larry Elmore's artwork for Dragonlance. I mean, it's realistic without being over the top, but it's also slightly fantastical. But then along comes 3rd edition D&D, and suddenly the artwork's completely different, and it's what a lot of people on various forums referred to as dungeon punk. And I have to admit, this didn't sit well with me at the time. It still kind of doesn't, because Pathfinder still kind of, which is my current game of choice, as you may know, still kind of follows on that tradition a little bit. The artwork is still a little too different. And I've seen various topics on this on various boards as well. But what I'm trying to do with this particular campaign is I still want it to be faux medieval. I still want, something that wouldn't look out of place in a historical drama or something like that, And it's made me ponder, because even with magic and monsters, does the world necessarily have to be built around that? I mean, they tried to do that with Eberron, a setting which I have to admit I couldn't stand, mainly because of that particular design element, the idea of magic as technology. And even some of the older campaign settings kind of had this. I mean, I remember Forgotten Realms games where there were continual light globes outside buildings at night, and if there was ever a murder, that was it. The watch would drag a priest out of bed and get him to cast Speak with Dead to find out who did it. And all this sort of stuff destroys my sense of immersion in the setting, because I see these games as being just slightly more fantastical than a medieval setting. And I've been looking at other ideas. I mean, if you've got things like bags of holding, how would that change things? Would merchants carry product in those bags? Saves on caravan costs? Would you teleport it? And once you start getting to this, I suddenly realise that, hang on, this is where D&D has gone now, kind of. D&D and Pathfinder and fantasy role-playing in general, I think, has kind of lost its origins in order to become a fantastical setting. And it's something I want to try and bring back in my games in future. I think I'm trying to fathom out means on how you can have healing and yet you still have the typical plagues and famines and so forth that plagued that sort of era. And with resurrection spells and so on. But I don't know, it just kind of made me ponder if fantasy worlds have to be like that because of magic and the presence of monsters and magic items and so forth. As I say, it destroys some of my immersion when games come across like that. We're playing, as I say, one of my usual players has taken over the GMing seat at the moment, and he's got his own little world that he's made, which it's a bit odd for my taste, but I'm enjoying it. And it's a D&D game. Sorry, it's a Pathfinder game, but, well, you know what I mean. It's a fantasy, it's traditional D&D level fantasy, and we're involved in some sort of like political intrigue, murder mystery, and so on, which is cool. But on one sort of like errand with our characters going out, we've had the appearance of Drow in flying ships. And while I didn't say anything, because the game's not, it's not fun, if you know what I mean, it kind of destroyed, again, an element of my immersion, because suddenly we're no longer... He's done a good job of describing sort of like this, the villages and stuff as being grotty, and the peasants, and and what I imagined in my mind is, typical medieval peasants, filthy, grotty, what have you. The villages are the same sort of thing. Only the cities around, in the heart of the city where the nobles are, is clean, everything is dirty. And then suddenly there's flying ships. And it's like, well, I can see the point. Magic can do this sort of thing. But does it have to? Now, I'm not asking people for advice on this. I'm working through this stuff myself. But I'm curious on your take on it. Do you run fantasy role-playing games as that fantastical, or do you have another preferred way of doing it? Do you, like myself, like something a little bit more... I can't really say realistic, because it isn't. It's kind of like semi-realistic. Or do you like something like Eberron, where magic is technology? Do you see that is a natural progression of how the game has gone over the years? I'd be interested to know your thoughts on it. Until next time, take care.